But, even Evil Knievel knew he wasn't going to jump that canyon. So when the parachute deployed early, it was kind of a foregone conclusion that he wasn't going to make it.
Wasn't Evil Knievel an astronaut from the 1960s that flew in some of the Apollo missions?
No, he'd like to think he was. He flew motorcycles over fountains and school buses and things like that.
Hopefully, he didn't do something stupid like try to jump the Grand Canyon or.
He wanted to, but he tried to jump the Snake River Canyon, and that didn't work out.
Well, at least he didn't try to do some sort of like crazy jumping of like 12 to 24 buses stacked, one after the
He
other.
did that just on the weekends.
I used to have a little, those toys where it was him on a motorcycle with the plastic cape, and
Hmm.
you'd take it and you'd rev it backwards,
Hmm.
like you go, "Nyeh, nyeh, nyeh, nyeh," and then
Yep.
you'd let it go and go. "Woo."
Yep. There
I
was
used
another one that had a wind up crank on it. You held onto the handle, and he was on the motorcycle, and you put it down on the little base, and you wound it up real tight, got it going a certain speed, and hit the button, and it took off. And it fell over much like he did. So,
those were fun,
yeah, they were. So,
simple but fun. So it's another trampled underfoot Tuesday, and we welcome everybody here, all one of you, because I'm looking at the
yeah,
little thing. We're happy that you have arrived. I have the one. Oh, it just popped into two. I guess it's
now,
updating.
I got to tell you, that is not always accurate. And if you're wondering, folks out there wondering what we're talking about, we have a little counter up here that says we've been live for 1 minute 56 seconds. And then it's got a little thing next to it with an eyeball, which represents how many viewers we have. And right now it says 2. It's not always accurate, just so you know. There could be 40 people out there. There's not, but it's not always accurate.
There could be there could be 40, 20. There could be hell. There could
Mhm.
be 5,036 people right now, and we're just not seeing it on the counter.
5,036? Name names. No, I'm messing.
Pedro, Paul, Humberto,
Hola, Petro.
Marcus. Um, he's got your name. I just adapted it. I'm trying to
Mhm.
invent names as we go.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, welcome to the Trampled Underfoot podcast, and we're here. It's Tuesday. There's only a handful of locations on Earth
Mhm.
during summertime that have persistent and continuous rainfall, regardless of the year that you look across time.
Mhm.
And South Florida or Florida as a whole, but South Florida has anytime. So whenever I look at the maps, I'll say, "Damn, we've got this heavy duty," which is what's happening now. But then I'll say, "Let me back out and look at the world," and it's only key places
Mhm.
on Earth, according to that satellite, that actually produce a continual, constant rain, and other places are like sunny and whatnot, and this and that. Well, today, and we have had rain, and we're going to have more apparently, but for the first time or one of the few times on the map radar,
Mhm.
it has a carved out hole,
Mhm.
Sweetwater sitting in it, where it's completely free of clouds, but it's surrounded by heavy duty. And usually that's not the case. We're usually you could be across the street from Sweetwater and
Mhm.
it's sunny, but Sweetwater's always raining. Always.
We call that condition that you're talking about, where you got clouds all around it, but you got a hole in the middle of it, where
Mhm.
it's nice and sunny and beautiful. Well, in aviation, we call that a sucker hole, because only a sucker would take off. Because that's the primary rule of aviation. Takeoffs are completely optional, but landings are mandatory. And only a sucker would take off in that, because the clouds are going to come close back up. Now you got to land through it, And helicopters don't have, Army helicopters anyway, don't have all the radar and auto land and all this other kind of crap. You come in visual, visual flight rules. So,
This is a new segment of our um, podcast show
Mhm.
that I never told you about. It's called Stupid Little Video Clips That Pop into Your. I'm still working on the theme, but if you can, if have you come across um, some little clip or something out there in the interwebs that is that stands out sufficient? Because I have one in mind, something that's just quirky, funny, or silly, or just oddball that you find endearing.
A ton of them. A ton of them. Linda and I here lately have been sharing funny cat and funny dog videos. They're compilations or YouTube shorts, or she does the Facebook Reels thing. And it's compilations of little 10 seconds clips here and there where a printer will all of a sudden spit out a piece of paper and a cat will go 6 feet in the air and haul ass out of the room, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But,
mine is an animal one too. But
oh,
go
what
ahead.
is it? Go ahead. What is it?
No, so
I might
there's
need to check it
one.
out.
Well, no, there's one you've probably seen it because everything you just said right now, funny
Mhm.
enough, either I've seen that exact one you saw or something so adjacent to it. I
Uh-huh.
think we're all being programmed in a continuous basis, but whatever.
We might be.
Yeah, because like you said that, it's like that's my experience too. Wow.
I saw that one.
Um, there's one, and you'll probably do the same now, but one that I really enjoy for some reason is, or not for some reason, it's adorable. Is that there's this dog that gets up on a skateboard
Hmm.
and then starts to pedal and goes like downhill or down in a parkway,
Hmm.
and he's just freaking going and going and going, making the turns, and
Hmm.
I'm like, it's too much. I can't see a dog adapting a vehicle or a
Hmm.
transportation device in order for him to like shimmy through a parkway.
Just having fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but the idea is that that he's steering. I just don't.
Hmm.
Is that real?
Is it a bulldog?
Hmm.
Yeah, I've seen that one. That dog's been around for a while, and he absolutely loves that skateboard. And
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it's real.
yeah, but how do you So the dog figured it out and said, "I can steer this."
Hmm. Yeah. Now he obviously isn't doing kick flips, and he ain't in the skate park riding the bowl or, you know, riding poles or any of that kind of stuff. But the fact that he knows to get over to one side and get it going, and then he can steer by leaning in certain ways. Yeah, that's a smart dog. And yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that dog. And it is a trip. And the first time you see it, it's like that ain't real. Come on, man. Somebody says got a radio control on it or something like that, but it's like no, it's that dog.
I also like the not to do with animals, but there's one, or there's many of them, where they're just pictures of then and now,
Uh-huh.
and they'll show the same building somewhere in Europe
Hmm.
or somewhere in New York or whatever, and they'll do the yesterday and today of it,
Hmm.
and it's just amazing stuff. Sometimes it's famous locations in movies and such and this and that,
Yeah.
and that's where I got the idea. I did one video because I grab up good ideas or that I think are good,
Hmm.
and I took a video of me working in my living room next door, and I'm moving drywall into the next room, but I have a photo of my mom, her parents, her sister, and my great grandmother standing in that same spot
Yeah.
where the video camera was pointing back in 2018, and this was in 1975. So I superimposed, like I brought it into being. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
you ever got to see that one, but
I did.
so I like that concept of like
Hmm.
superimposing old, and I kind of like that. So I took it for myself and
Ran with it.
and added to that. So those are cool too.
There is, and I can't remember the name of the channel, but there's a channel out there who does something similar. But what he does is he'll take modern pictures and then he slowly blends in pictures from World War II. So, like, you'll have this road crossing, where one road comes in and meets another, and there's a store over here, and then it slowly fades into black and white, and you see, troops over here and a tank over there, and the pavements, all the cobblestones are
Seen it.
broken up and everything.
Yeah.
And he'll fade it out back to modern times, and then he'll just like put in the soldiers in
Yeah.
black and white over in one corner. He's done that with a whole bunch of different photos, and I think that is fascinating stuff. It really is fascinating stuff to see not only what it looked like back then, but how now that was the 1940s, maybe the 1930s, late 1930s, but how relatively quickly people can recover from such devastation, how people can recover and how they can make things right again, so that you look at these places and you would never even imagine something like that happened there.
Infrastructure wise, because the soul is, I mean, all those people from back then, World War II,
Mm-hmm.
not all, but the ones that saw some heavy duty stuff, likely carried that kind of stuff with them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But the infrastructure, and I guess that's part of healing, because if you have nice gardens and beautiful things returned, that allows for the generations to
Right.
progress. So that is a good. Obviously, you don't want to live in war torn, bullet riddled,
Well,
like Berlin generations
obviously,
out.
yeah.
But you know what I'm saying about the
Yes.
inside part.
Mm-hmm. And
A company.
just the ability to go on after something like that and not feel just completely, totally devastated and defeated. And what the hell, why even bother? To not feel that way and want to continue on and want to improve it and want to recover.
Yeah.
So,
Although it's not bullet riddled and war torn, but Sweetwater has undergone significant changes with buildings being built where housing used to be.
mhm,
And I I grew up obviously in a time that's decades ago, um, but some of those areas that have been built up didn't have anything on them. Then they did, which I grew up with those things that then later had stuff
right.
on them, and then they were taken down, and now new stuff is on them.
Yeah.
So in some areas there was nothing, just like grass and brush.
Yeah.
Then something was built. I lived with that for quite a while, and then just recently it's been. But my point is that I used to walk even Vigo, and even before that on bike or whatever, those same areas, and it was just apartments, and people living there. And I would say hi to the people, and we would talk. Well, where those people used to be in those like townhouses,
Yeah.
it's just a huge concrete wall looking up. It's
Yeah.
countless windows, part of a huge structure. And even though I'm walking where that used to be, the memory
Yeah.
of where that was, and I know that it was there, is that new thing is so overpowering
Yeah.
that the old is practically just disappeared.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I like, in a sense, walking that area, because I'm walking from something that's very familiar, which is my area. But
Mhm.
then once you cross into that a couple of streets down, it becomes some sort of mini New York or mini Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And there's little walkways in between and such. You can walk your dog, which I do, and then you go, and there's lighting that's really, and then like restaurants, and so it's almost like you're in some sort of Steinfeld episode. Not quite, but you get the point.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I do. Now there must be, but then again, who knows? I'm a member of a Facebook group here that's the big city close to us is Medford, and it's called Medford and Surrounding Area Memories and Stories. and they post a lot of pictures from back in the day. I mean, all the way back to some of the first pictures taken in the valley back in the 1800s. And a lot of it was from my lifetime, a lot of it was from before my lifetime. And it's always been cool to me to see these pictures from the 50s and 60s. Some of the things I remember, some of it was gone before I remember. But trying to place it and go, oh, yeah, that was over there. And the reasons for losing some of these buildings are manyfold. I mean, maybe it was bought, maybe it burned to the ground. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why some of these landmarks disappear. But is there anything like that for your area? Just a Facebook group where people will post pictures and post stories of certain buildings or certain places, their memories of it. And
Yeah.
maybe their dad used to work there or something like that.
Yeah, but for the broader Miami area,
Oh, there isn't one for Sweetwater?
no, there's not one for that I've seen. There's not one. Um, but I do join. I am part of the broader Miami ones. Let's say a
Mm-hmm.
couple of them.
Yeah.
And anytime I post something there of a memory of Sweetwater,
Mm-hmm.
there's a guy that on a couple of occasions will say, "Hey, I used to work in the mall
Mm-hmm.
on 107th,
Yeah.
and in the 80s, and I used to work the cable, you know, installments in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had cable back then, I'm probably the one that serviced your home."
That's cool.
He mentioned, and so there's that, and then there's another guy that's the son or grandson. I think it's the son of the chief of police here
Mm-hmm.
back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like a rock and roller, rock and roll band. Like he's in his 60s himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he lives somewhere up further north, still in Florida, but somewhere like, I don't know, Fort Lauderdale or something
Yeah.
like that. And he's literally one of the guys, the children of the people from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he'll put on occasion will post little tidbits
Mm-hmm.
of quality stuff, um, which is cool, which is
Mm-hmm.
cool. But like for me growing up in the 80s, I mean, being here in the 70s, I was a baby, but
Yeah.
I was growing, I was a kid, a baby, but then spilling into the 80s, and into the 90s and whatnot, um, especially in the 80s, I would see remnants because it was still what it was the past 30, 40 years anyhow.
Yeah.
Roughly, there was new construction, but there were still people that rode horses.
Mm-hmm.
But now, this is people that maybe had horses in their little ranch,
Yeah.
and then they would ride horses down the street
Mm-hmm.
on weekends. And my dad would call me out to see the horses and stuff. This was something that was typical
Yeah.
back in the 60s, not so much after the 80s.
Yeah.
Midway to the 80s, that was banned completely, as far as I can remember. But that's like a little something that's special because who can say that they saw people riding horses? I mean, it's not like a big but it is, in a sense, because you're watching in an American street in the
Yeah.
80s as a kid in front of your house,
Yeah.
regular people just horse riding down your street.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So to me that was like, wow, as a kid, as a baby.
Yeah. It's kind of a situational and locational thing because my grandparents on my father's side lived closer to town, so you didn't really see that. You might on occasion, because while they were closer to the middle of town, they had they were kind of their back was right up against the high school. I mean, the back of their property bordered the baseball field. But across from them was a huge cow pasture, and then it was vacant land on up the hillside in front of them. And you'd see horses out there beyond the cow pasture that was all fenced off private property. And you'd see people go on horseback going up there, and occasionally they would go down my grandparents' street. Not very often. So you might see it 2 or 3 times a summer. You didn't see it in town unless it was a parade or a special event or something like that. But my grandparents on my mother's side of the family, they were out in the country, and horses going down the street was that was a daily thing. It was, I mean, well, Linda saying she used to ride her horse to the drive-through dairy to buy milk. Yeah. You would see that. We would go to the little store close to my grandmother's house down by the elementary school, and there'd be 1 or 2 horses out front. They were in the store buying something, a soda or whatever, a loaf
That's
of bread
something
or
that
whatever.
we no longer. I mean, we're just, it is what it is. But there's something warming about that. I mean, well,
I hadn't thought of that until you mentioned it just now, but it's been years since I've seen that. I don't know that I have seen that since we've moved back up, but it used to be fairly common. Now, like I said, you didn't see them downtown, and they weren't, running down the freeway or nothing like that. But it wasn't rare. Now, I don't think we've been back not quite 12 years. I don't think I've seen it since we've been back.
And it was something common. Our ancestors, that would have been their form of transportation.
Yeah. It would have been remarkable to them to see a car.
Yeah.
Let alone, but horses were common.
Well, there's a photo that I was sent to me from Cuba, from a cousin of mine, and the photo isn't somebody standing on high, maybe on a rooftop, in the main drag of the town of Aguada, watering hole for the passerbyers. That's the name of the town if you translate it to English. Water something for passerbyers or what, or for travelers or whatnot. It's something to that effect, but that's what it means. But the photo was of a great granduncle of mine called Benito Uralde, and Benito Uralde passed away. It was his funeral, and from that overhead view, this was sometime in the 1920s or 30s. The overview, it's a black and white picture, but you see the town with the wooden shops and a carriage drawing, there was a little truck, but there was carriages. There was a little like 30s truck pulling but along the buildings, there's people with their horses tied.
Yeah.
And this was the 30s. They had automobiles, but it was quite equal, or to one degree, to have horses that they'd use as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was common. I mean, I've got a picture of my great-grandfather, and I remember him as an old man. I mean, it's sad to say, but he was also born in 1895. So I have pictures of him as a younger man with a team of horses and a plow and working a field just uphill from where the big hospital is here in town now. You have no reference of what I'm talking about, but that whole thing up there now is the hospital is there. Then there's a whole bunch of medical buildings and clinics and this, that, and the other. And then there's a golf course off to one side, and then there's houses all over the place. To think that somebody was out there planting crops using horses to pull a plow is just kind of wow. It's not something that you would think about. But I have no frame of reference to pinpoint exactly where that spot was. And I don't know where that house was. I know what road it was on, but that's the only thing I can tell you. So, but it's weird. Linda gets tired of riding around town with me because I am that old man. that you've ever been in the car with. Oh, that used to be such and such and so and so, and I don't know when it got tore down, but man, they sure did mess up this corner. Or oh yeah, I remember when that was built, and oh I helped roof that place. Or oh yeah, I did. So she gets tired of the sightseeing tour. She's like, yeah, I know. Every time we drive by it, you tell me that story. You know.
I used to be friends with a gentleman that lived here, that he was a Cuban Jewish person,
Hmm.
an older gentleman that would walk his dogs.
Yeah,
I think I've mentioned him in the past in
I think you have.
prior episodes. Um, but then he moved because they purchased the whole land where him and others were.
Hmm.
So they relocated. Who knows where they are? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I contacted him once, um, but he was not that he was non-respondent, but he seemed older
Uh huh.
and just not with it and stuff, or it didn't appear. So he was. So I left it at that. But I made the effort to reach out to him because I was appreciative of our conversations and whatnot. Well, one time, and he was older than me, much older than me. But
Hmm.
one time, but he arrived here a couple of decades prior, so maybe in the '80s or something to that effect. I don't know
Uh huh.
now at this point. Um, but one time we were talking here outside my house here in the porch. I, we were talking, and I said to him at one point, "I've been here so long, and remember, this guy's an older guy, but this
Hmm.
holds true still, considering all the. I've been here so long that I can tell you honestly that most of the houses, if you look across here, and I've been in those houses
Hmm.
across the decades as a
Hmm.
kid with
Yeah.
friends, neighbor, whatever the case might be.
Mhm.
Many of the houses, just by looking across the road,
Yeah.
I've been in them.
Uh,
Like I can look at houses where people exit in the morning to go to work.
mhm.
I know who lived there, not once before them, not
Mhm.
twice before them, but like going back in time.
Yeah.
And I remember when I used to sit in those houses with the people that lived there at
Mhm.
that time with my mom visiting.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's a crazy thing to say. So that's the extent to
Mhm.
which, without me even realizing that I am rooted, in this place in
Yeah.
history wise. Um, but and everybody that I see is virtually new.
Yeah.
Even though my family came here from Little Havana in the
Mhm.
'70s, beginning of the '70s,
Mhm.
turn of the decade into the '70s,
Right.
that's still a freaking long time. But all the people that were here anyhow have
Mhm.
gone,
Yeah.
gone, gone. There's a few, but
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And that is the that's just the way things are. People grow up and grow out. You know, they grow up and they move away.
That's why.
This little valley has never really been a destination. Um, and I used to say this as a kid. I can remember saying the only people here are kids, are old people and their grandkids. Because most folks that graduate high school, if they don't go to the local university here, they go up north or go down south to go to school in California or up near Portland or up in Washington. You know,
Yeah.
the whole thing used to be to grow up here, get independent, get solvent enough to move out and move on. You know, it was never really a destination for anybody other than retirees. And so you saw a lot of old men wearing hats, you know, and flannel shirts in the winter time and what have you. But anymore, it's pretty much. I mean, I guess it has changed in that regard a little bit because there we do have the two biggest hospitals in Southern Oregon here. So, and people come from all over to come to these hospitals. So, a lot of medical services here, and then the support industry for that. But I mean, it's completely different. And I tell folks that I'm so local, I'm related to myself because I'm the fourth generation born within 50 miles of the original homestead out in the Applegate Valley, which doesn't mean anything to you, but it's about 45 miles from me right now. I mean, my dad was born 3/4 of a mile away from me. I could almost throw a rock and hit the window. It's that I was born 11 miles down the highway from where I'm sitting right now. It's that strange. So when you drive down the road and you see this, or you refer to something that a local would have called it 40 years ago, do you have anything like that? Local landmarks? Like, we got one area of town that everybody called Buckshot Hill because the ground was so hard and full of little bitty rocks, about biggest one to be about the size of a walnut. But it was so densely packed with rocks, you almost had to blast to dig a hole. And they called it Buckshot Hill. Well, every local knew what the hell you were talking about if you mentioned something over by Buckshot Hill. And now I get that, what the hell is this old man talking about? Look, they don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you know? You have anything like that? Any local areas that you know what they mean, but other folks might not?
Yeah, well, I mean, many people wouldn't know that right across the street was an airport, the Tamiami Airport,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a university now.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know that, but we grew up going there, um, riding bike there,
Mm-hmm.
um, and watching people use those, I guess, remote control planes on the actual big strip. So you'd have this
Yeah.
huge, and you'd have people flying the little, planes.
Uh-huh.
Um, they wouldn't know about that, but it's not like something. It's just something gone away,
Mm-hmm.
but that we would know. And then just just off the, I can't really at the moment think of anything in the
Mm-hmm.
greater Miami area. Um, the uh, the newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was called the Miami Times, I think it was, or something to that effect.
I've heard of the Miami Herald, but that's about it.
Well, this was called the Miami Times, and it no longer, it's defunct. But
Oh, okay.
but back in the 20s, 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, and then at some point it just died out for some reason or got sold. I don't know what happened or removed. But that building is called the Freedom Tower because since the 60s, that's where Cuban exiles were processed when they
Mm-hmm.
arrived from Cuba.
Okay.
And so, in effect, what has happened with that building, it had a history prior
Mm-hmm.
as a news, whatnot. But then after the fact, it became the processing place. But then after that, and it's located right on the bay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like in the heart of Miami, downtown Miami.
Yeah.
It's actually adjacent or near. It's near. It's near, maybe a few blocks away from, like, Bayside
Mm-hmm.
Marketplace, which is kind of like a mainstay of Miami now.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's become a museum, a Cuban historical museum. So the building's now a museum.
Do
Um,
they still call it the Freedom Tower, though?
yeah, they call it the
Okay.
Freedom Tower.
Okay.
But for my little neck of the woods, I can't really tell you.
Okay.
I'd have to sit and really think. I just
Mm-hmm.
know what things were prior to what they were.
Yeah.
But there's no one I could really. Maybe my neighbor across the street,
Mm-hmm.
been here since the 80s, would know things up until that point.
Yeah. Okay.
My
Okay.
dad used to. My dad used to tell me stories that when he got here, when they got here,
Mm-hmm.
um, there were still the remnants of little people's houses
Yeah.
because this place was settled by little people from Russia
Mm-hmm.
that were circus performers, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they would travel the country, and one
Mm-hmm.
day they traveled down this way, heading towards Miami, maybe, or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they saw some signs for sale land, and they said this is as good a place as any, and they wanted to turn this into a circus town.
Yeah.
And even though it didn't turn into that, it kind of has been Miami. Sweetwater has. So
Yeah.
This place has been very special, very average, but yet very special, very normal, and
Yeah.
very abnormal. In depending on what you focus, corruption,
Yeah.
I mean, just
Yeah.
any number of stuff. So, but I don't know about some sort of
Well,
landmark.
there people give weird names to landmarks. I think just about every area has something they call four corners, where you have a crossroads, and we've got one here. It's not the only place where two highways cross. Why they decided to call that four corners, I don't know. But you say four corners to people and they know exactly what you're talking about. Or you say out on Upper Table Rock, they know exactly what you're talking about. Or you say, well, used to be, you say Buckshot Hill, they knew where you were talking about. But I was talking to somebody the other day, and I don't know, oh, it was the other day in the DMV when I was getting my truck registered. I was talking to another guy who, I don't know how long he'd been here, but I said, oh, that old dirt road on the way up to Jacksonville Reservoir. And he got that glazed over look in his eyes like, I have no idea where you're talking about, buddy. And so I don't even know if that old road still exists. I don't know if you can get up there. I don't know, is it on private property now or what? But some of my old kicking grounds and stomping grounds out here in the woods and what have you are just not accessible anymore.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, time is a
yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, just mentioning I guess it's not a, but so I didn't have the experience of what happens in the Everglades other than visiting with my family
Yeah.
occasionally through the years. We did stop at the Indian village and this and that, but I didn't have the experience of interacting with people
Mm-hmm.
like I did when I went and got a job in the Everglades.
Yeah.
And I did so when my mom had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would go to work here in the mall. I had a Miami life,
Yeah.
just about. Well, not just about, that's what it was, city life, let's say.
Yeah.
And I'd work in the mall, but I couldn't deal with it anymore. Everything reminded me of what had happened. So I quit my job. Nobody even, I mean, everybody was like, they backed out because it was such a big thing. And we're talking about like a long while ago. It was such a, nobody argued with me the point.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody understood. I mean, I would bust out in tears
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of work.
Yeah.
Just like that. Simple. I'd have
Yeah.
to walk away. I just bust out in tears. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
driving in my car. I'd stop at a light and I'd start to beat hell out of the steering wheel in
Yeah.
fits of freaking uncontrollable.
Yeah.
It's not like I was controlling it.
Right.
It was overwhelming. I'm
Yeah.
still marked by it now and forever and ever. And I mean, I'm sorry, but but I didn't mean to go down that route. But because of that, I decided to switch my work,
Mm-hmm.
and I went out, drove to the Everglades, and that's where I started working in the Everglades. And that's a whole area of Miami, detail wise, that I didn't had never experienced. And I almost felt that once I was there and everybody with their uniforms, it
Mm-hmm.
was a swamp old west vibe, if I
Yeah.
could even say that. Because you had all these people, they had no obvious connection to Miami in the way that I knew Miami. So everybody here, not everybody, but um, has a Cuban background to one degree or the other in a large amount growing up, to the extent that I didn't even think twice about it. It just was.
Yeah.
So the majority here um, was that. You had other people, obviously, all the time, but there was so much of everything that, and a lot of the Cuban, that it just felt like a metropolitan type vibe.
Yeah.
You'd have friends that were anything and everything from any location. So it was like whatever.
Yeah.
But you knew that there was a mass, but not
Mhm.
over there, not out in the Everglades. And so it was a different perspective and
Yeah.
stuff. And and different customs when it comes to, um, just things of like working on cars, or the idea of, after work, certain entertainment methods
Mhm.
that didn't fall. And so it was a great thing, because it was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is like an adventure. So I felt that, yeah, I was working, but I was also like, man, this is like an adventure. And all the new friends and stuff,
Yeah.
they all had different points of view, but we had things in common as well, be it music and this and that. But as far as their choices, it was more to do with out in the woods
Yeah.
type choices.
Yeah.
And I found it like, wow, this is a whole new Miami experience, or South Florida experience, that I'd never experienced before.
It's a microcosm of the whole city versus country discussion.
That's exactly what it is, actually.
I think that's what you were experiencing was your first little taste of not so much country life because you still lived where you lived,
Yeah.
but once you got away from it. Now, I've never asked you about this, I don't think, but this is related. When you were a kid growing up, obviously you knew the Everglades were right out there.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of perception of what it was or what it meant or what was out there? Was it kind of a creepy, mystical thing, or was it just there's nothing out there, I ain't interested? Or what was your perception of it growing
I
up?
I just knew that the Indians lived out there,
Hmm.
and I knew that from traveling in the car with my dad when we'd go in that direction,
Hmm.
the furthest we'd ever go was a place, actually talking about Four Corners, a place called Dade Corners, which was
Hmm.
actually a crossroad, and
Hmm.
that's at the extreme edge of the county or civilization, let's say,
Hmm.
because they had an Indian smoke shop.
Oh, okay.
So my dad would go there and he'd say, "You want to come? I'm going down to the," and the drive was so distant. It's actually
Hmm.
like 12 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. But
But
when you're a little kid, it feels like forever.
so I'm literally, you could basically say that the Everglades is just like next door to me right there right now.
Yeah.
Like you could say that, but we're so much city that,
Hmm.
but we drive there, and it felt like we're going in a mysterious direction of wooded,
Hmm.
mysterious. But beyond that,
Yeah.
and the fact that the Indians lived out there, I didn't think much, and I knew there we had alligators here in the canal,
Oh, okay.
so it's not like, but we, so no, that's all I thought about.
Okay.
That's all I thought about, to be honest with you. I didn't think that even anybody lived out there, and they do.
Okay. That's where I was going next was so when you went to work out there, what was the part about excuse me.
Bless
Oh
you.
man. What was the part about actually getting out there and going to work out there that surprised you the most? Maybe not about the job, but about the Everglades itself. What was the part that surprised you the most?
That that surprised me the most.
Or that you didn't expect, you know?
There's a whole world of people, even in Miami, as Hispanic as it is, that have no connection to Hispanic world, but they live adjacent. They're a minority as opposed to maybe other parts of the country. This is a very odd place in terms of that, because
Mhm.
it's not what you see in other parts of. I mean, I assume, or what I've seen
Mhm.
when I've been, um, that gave me a recollection of when I was growing up years prior with my little friends.
Mhm.
In because Sweetwater was a mix of all these things when I was coming up, because the
Mhm.
Cubans had come in, and they had certain customs.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not like visiting some place in a monastery in China and now you're discovering a custom.
Yeah.
You're aware that there's this custom, but just having these people around with
Mhm.
their take on life,
Yeah.
um to add to your under like experience.
Uh-huh.
I had that when I was growing up, and now I found them again when I was working
Oh,
in the
okay.
Everglades. There was similarities, They were missing the Spanish, but they had all these reference points to cars, hot rods, the music that I love, that I grew up
Uh-huh.
with, and the Spanish you don't necessarily get, um, unless it's your friends of your age,
Sure.
but you don't get that experience of certain things. So there's a lot of things that are American that are
Mhm.
soaked up, um, but I don't know. I guess you get what I'm saying.
I do.
There's all these cultural variations, and I rediscovered um a group of people. And it's not like they were the same people, but you get my point.
I do get your point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I found that was really awesome.
Hmm.
There were drawbacks too, because a lot of
I bet.
animosity has. Uh, there. Some people held certain resentment towards particularly the dominant group,
Hmm.
which is here. It was the Cubans at that time. It still is, but it's not as much as it was.
Hmm.
But for a few decades, it was. So I had found myself also trying to defend. Like the first one of the first things that happened to me that I it was good and bad. There was good and bad stuff, but the
Hmm.
bad was trivial, stupid stuff. But one of the first things is that a guy came up to me. He
Hmm.
says, "Hey, are you Spanish?" And you have to understand, I was a kid, like 20 something,
Uh-huh.
and those concepts and ideas. Well,
Hmm.
yes, I am Spanish, but it's not even like it's not. But he asked me, like, trying to parse out what's going on here,
Yeah.
and I looked at him, and and I remember me going, like stopping and thinking, oh shit, let me think here. Am I Spanish? Because it's not something that you. I'm just, And then I said to him, "Well, yeah." And but later on, this guy would have continual troubles.
Hmm.
I'd have continual troubles with the person. Just raunchy, crusty type
Just a
attitude.
jerk. Yeah.
Yeah, he had his good sides too, but he had his prejudices.
Yeah.
Um, and so there was that, but most people didn't.
Uh-huh.
But I never knew about that,
Yeah.
because as far as I knew, you understand.
Hmm.
Um, I come from the majority group. You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah.
So
I do. I do.
like, there's no even question about it. It's
Hmm.
not until I started saying, well, what's this animosity about? I
Hmm.
had no idea, because I don't think I wasn't taught to think in terms like that.
Yeah.
But
Neither was I. Yeah.
he did, and he was obviously making distinctions, and which I didn't. But we did go out, we did have dinner, we would talk, we would. There was. It's not like it was cut and dry, but
Yeah.
he did lean towards saying stuff that made me think. So all that was interesting.
Yeah. To say the least.
I found myself being the, like, director of the Chamber of Commerce for Cuban relations in
Mm-mm.
the Everglades,
Mm-mm.
without even wanting to, because I remember one time a guy saying, I think I've told you this before, but he said it was neither here nor there. Like, we would fight and make up, because
Uh-huh.
it's stupid stuff, but
It's
it's
guys being guys. Yeah.
but the brain, like, I
Hmm.
intellectually think it was like idiotic, but whatever. Like, I could reason out what something
Hmm.
is in a general vicinity of whether it's stupid or a
Yeah.
reasonable complaint, let's say. Well, one time he was like, he comes up, another friend says, co-worker, friend slash whatever. He was a good guy. He just,
Hmm.
whatever. But he says, yeah, I don't know why, when I go to Miami, um, something to the effect of, anytime I go to the Burger King or the this or that, you're always speaking Spanish. And, like, I was there,
Hmm.
and as cold and dry and cut as it was, like, I reasoned it, like, he asked a question, and I was there, and I just reasoned it out automatically. I hadn't thought about it prior.
Hmm.
And I said to him, well, the reason for that is, like, automatic, like, it just
Yeah.
popped into my head at that time. I said, well, the reason for that is that since there's a lot of Cubans there and they speak Spanish, the businesses are just simply catering to what where the money is. And he did not like that. one iota. And he went back at me, and I was like, "Whoa, what? I'm just telling you what it is." And we went back and forth, back and forth. It ended up
Mm-hmm.
we were shouting at each other. We got to a little bit of a tussle over some we were kids too, but the point is that there was that kind of. I had never experienced that stuff.
Wow.
It didn't even cross my mind, but then I learned that that stuff exists.
Yeah.
And
Sadly, it does.
yeah, but they weren't. I'm not trying to overemphasize it
Mm-hmm.
because there were a lot of good times too. I'd be invited to their house, we'd hang out.
Yeah.
You understand? So it wasn't
Yeah, I
necessarily.
do.
Yeah, it was just that kind of stuff. It is what it is. But um, that was just some of but there was fishing involved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of the guys I'm still friends with to this day,
Yeah.
they would take me out on their airboats and say, "Hey, man, we're gonna go. Come on, let's go." So you understand? Or
Yeah.
let's go visit over here. Or hey, there's these animals that we want to take a look. Just let's go to the Airboat Association Club and experience one of their meetings. Okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
go. Or let's go eat over here. Let's go eat some barbecue at this very out
Yeah.
of the way shack. We didn't have that kind of stuff in Miami in terms of my experience. What we had was let's go to the mall.
Yeah. Or well,
Not let's go to a wooded area and fricking hang out under a cheeky hut and drink beer.
well, my experience with work in the city was when you got done with your job, you wanted to get as far away from it as you could. So I didn't hang out with any of my coworkers. I never hung out with any of my coworkers until I joined the army. And then it was common. It was real common to hang out with the guys in your unit. You're kind of a tightly knit group. But I had never experienced that kind of thing. Hey, my platoon sergeant coming up and saying, "We're going to meet up down at the Corral Club in Seaside, about 6 o'clock. You coming?" Um, well, I don't know. I got a family at home. I got to do this, that, and the other. Are you coming? Well, yeah, I guess I'll be down there, and then I got to go home and we have dinner, and then I got to go to the Corral Club and meet up with the guys down there. All right, fine. And that was it. I had never experienced that kind of thing before because working just about anywhere, when you punched out and you were done, you were done. See you tomorrow. That's it. You know.
Yeah. This was a little different because I mean I can't really unpack certain things
Mm-hmm.
because boy oh boy. Um I mean I shouldn't even say it like that because it begs the question.
Mm-hmm.
But just picture just just picture um this is in a place the Everglades is in a place where how can I put this? It's not on a scale the normal
Mm-hmm.
people that gravitate to that. And by normal I don't mean um abnormal. What I mean
Mm-hmm.
by normal on average, the type of people or temperament or it was perfect for me because I'm really but I didn't know I was more refined. When you grow up here, I mean, talk about I mean, number one, my upbringing was based on a lot of respectful limits
Mm-hmm.
to what you would even afford um, telling someone,
Yeah.
even if you thought it.
Yeah.
Like the behavior that I was taught was easy to follow in a sense, even though I was slightly rebellious because there was certain respectfulness towards
Yeah.
people
Certain things you just don't say. Yeah.
say or right. So you had to be and very respect. But when I went over there, when I worked over there, I saw that there was a gulf between certain value points,
Mm-hmm.
not at the base of basic humanity,
Mm-hmm.
but they were more. They had some rough around the edges type qualities, to say the
Very
least.
direct.
I wouldn't use the word direct. Well, yeah, you could say direct without filtering the decent thing that we would have decided on doing due to
Yeah.
so yes, in a sense, very direct, but um, unfiltered, I guess you could say as well. So
Yeah.
I would say rough around the edges is what I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, um, so there was that, and I wasn't exposed to that, so that was interesting. So
Yeah.
I hung out there
Hmm.
because I liked hanging out there, and I was learning some cool stuff and different ways of like the environments. It was very cool. Um, but I also realized that wow, I and they would take shots at me in the
Hmm.
beginning. I was very young, Mark.
Yeah.
Um, they befriended me very quickly, but they would also, I think, saw my the other day. Steve said something to the effect of dandy,
Hmm.
which is prim and proper
Yeah.
and
Such a dandy.
refined.
Yeah.
Um, you could stamp that with all of South Florida. If you're in the city, there's a
Hmm.
cultural norm.
Yeah.
They saw that I was quite city,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
and they took the piss out of me.
I can see it. Yep. Yep.
And once I caught on with that, because I'm not necessarily so I had the ability to cut them down left, right, and center at
Hmm.
every step of the way. Like I could see them coming from a mile. Like
Uh-huh.
I knew prior to one if somebody's approaching in a certain way. Like I could see what's going on and what's possible. I
Uh-huh.
could see everything. Like I'm not, but I wasn't allowed due to my upbringing
Hmm.
to extend in kind certain
Hmm.
little jabs. But once I started experiencing and getting comfortable, I started tearing into it too. And once I did do that,
Hmm.
some didn't appreciate it kindly because I went full on. Because I have the ability to do that too. It's just that I was
Uh-huh.
taught to reserve my
Yeah.
tongue. But I went at it, and it was fun. It was
Yeah.
really good.
Well, that to me, I put that down to guys being dudes because yeah, you're the new guy. So you're going to get picked on because you're the new guy. Yeah, you're the city guy. So you're going to get picked on from that angle too. Yeah, you don't really know anybody here. You don't know the environment. You're going to get picked on about that. I mean, but it happens to everybody. That happened to me every unit I went to in the Army. I'm
Yeah.
the new guy. I'm going to get slapped around a little bit, not physically, but verbally. And they're going to try to pull pranks on me. And I know I know a lot of the stuff. I was born at night, but not last night. So once I figured out who was going to try to be the jokester, I learned quickly what to throw back, how far to push, and when to back off, But it happens to everybody. And
Yeah.
again, I put that down to guys just being dudes because you find the one soft spot and exploit the hell out of that, you know?
Yeah. So some of the guys really took to me. I took to them,
Mhm.
and I've had lifelong friendships with to this day.
Yeah.
Um, and they grew up in South Florida too. Many of these people. It's
Hmm.
just that they had a different experience because they were more leaning towards the Everglades, where I wasn't.
Yeah.
Um, I was involved with the city stuff of our era, which was Dungeons and Dragons and riding bicycle and cityscape stuff. I mean, but
And rock and
Sweetwater was a
roll. Yeah.
small. We're a small town, but it's not like we were out. I mean, we did fish occasionally, but we weren't fishing guys.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
we weren't outdoorsmen. We were
Hmm.
freaking kids from a little town
Yeah.
adjacent to the Everglades, and never. I mean, for all we knew, there were freaking serial killers out there or something
Yeah.
or other.
Yeah. But when you're young like that, you're bulletproof and you don't care about stuff like that. You know, and some of the stuff that we used to do out here in the woods just makes my skin crawl now. I'm thinking, oh my God, man, you could have just died like that, you know, doing stupid stuff that I would never consider doing now. But when you're that age, you're bulletproof. What the hell?
They
You
had
know,
they had out there in the Everglades. People went out there to live their lives in peace.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they did when they came to Sweetwater back in the early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sweetwater was tough because I mean this was all brush, but going where these people are
Yeah,
at
that was
and
another level. Yeah.
that's a different level of like what,
Mm-hmm.
because these people, so back in the 20s and 30s these people used to do like bootlegging and all sorts of
Oh yeah.
like, that's what they did, these people.
Yeah.
So it's a different freaking set of ideas or thinking or experience. And so I was learning all that kind of, I mean these people have airboats,
Mm-hmm.
they go frog gigging, um, they trap alligators, or at least they did back then. um, these people have like shacks out in the middle of nowhere. I mean this is like, so it was fun in terms
Yeah.
of that. Very different than Sweetwater or the rest of Miami, to be honest with you.
We
uh,
have we have some of that here as well, not as much as it used to be, but um, we had a lot of logging roads and Forest Service roads all over the place throughout the mountains around here. And it was just basically done for timber surveys. Sometimes they were used for logging, or they had been used for logging and were no longer in use. But the Forest Service still used it, and they kept track of what was going on out in the woods, any potential spots where we might need to come in and clean up a little bit to keep a big fire from taking off or something like that. And but us kids, we were out there squirreling around in those woods all the time. I mean, in high school, just about every guy that I knew had one old beat up car or truck that was so, I mean, in such rotten condition, it wasn't even registered. And we were up there, we called it boonie hopping or boonie crashing, up there squirreling around up in those woods in these old rattle trap cars on these old dirt and gravel roads, just exploring the woods and not giving a damn about how fast we were going, or maybe there was something coming around the next corner, like a logging truck or a bulldozer or something like that, because they were. I mean, they were up there. But it was common. That was just happening all the time, because we'd get up there into one quiet area and get out, and kind of, this is pretty cool up here. I ain't never been up here. And all of a sudden, here comes another old rattle trap truck heading past us, go around the corner and head on down the road, you know. And there are people all over crawling around all over in those woods up there.
in a sense, I could, if I were to, and by the way, I'm reflecting on many things in a different light due to my studies, historical studies, family
Uh,
wise, and how all that fits. So I'm getting a second opportunity, or maybe the first opportunity, to review the world
mhm,
around me in a more reflective manner and seeing how the pieces fit with each other,
mhm.
like looking back at stuff in a way.
Yeah.
And it's been, now this isn't what I'm about to say isn't, I'm sort of like Frankensteining it together, but I'll say like this, that in a sense that you just explained, um which I would categorize in an Americana category,
Yeah.
but to be fun with it, not scientifically, but to be fun with it,
Hmm.
or if I had to be poetic with it, I
Hmm.
would say these are remnants or a passing of the torch, or
Hmm.
a traveling down the road from back in time, from the what was it, Daniel Boone
Yeah.
era,
Okay.
explorational type thing. It's
Yeah.
a passing down the line, going into, you know let's call it, even later, let's closer to me, um the what do you call this, Smokey and the Bandit type
Yeah.
automobiles, and that traveling
Hmm.
down the country. You have the cars, you have the, and then you have the rock and roll as well. Although with the country
Yeah.
involved, you have this sort of um, experience that falls within that world
Hmm.
of
Big
that
time.
you described, and I would put it within. And I saw that theme with
Yeah.
all my friends, Anglo-Saxon derived
Hmm.
friends, even since I was a little kid, and especially with the parents of my friends, they would have trucks that they would modify.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about back in the 70s,
Oh
in
yeah.
the 80s. And we jump in the truck and we go, and it was all about that kind of and whereas with my on the Cuban side, it wasn't we there was visiting of families. There was and
Hmm.
I'm not saying that doesn't exist with the other side, but like in our case it was more um it was just missing that sort of like I guess that wasn't available to them because they had a different experience going on. They
Right.
were in a new country, and so there was a different cultural vibe to it in terms of
Yeah.
that. But so I got my fix in both cases.
Hmm.
So that's kind of special in a way.
I kind of know what you mean on that. Not because I lived it, but because I was friends with people who lived it.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I told you about my friend Vincent and his whole family. Um, Mom and dad were devout Catholic, and the kids were kids. And I was of that age as well. And Sunday was for church and family, and that was all there was to it. You visited family, family came to visit you, and things like that. And there's a line in a Jimmy Buffett song that says there's a thin line between Saturday night and Sunday morning. And that is evident right there because on Saturday, Vincent and I would be out, on bikes, raising hell, doing whatever we could. But Sunday morning, he was just not he was just not visible at all Sunday. He just wasn't there,
Yeah.
you know, unless they invited me to go to church. And I usually spent the entire day up until dinner time with them because it was expected of me, you know. I got invited to go to church. I didn't realize that was from 8 in the morning till 6:30 in the evening. you know, it was a whole day thing. We went to church, went to mass, came home, but then it's like, oh no, it's not time to go home yet. We still got we're going to be getting ready for dinner and what have you. And I'm like, well, that's 5 hours away. What are we going to do? But we would do the whole family thing, and it was in the living room talking about life, the universe, and everything. And I didn't have that at home. At home, it was, you're done with your cartoons, go out and play. And okay, and it wasn't a case of you're going to sit around and watch TV all day. That ain't happening. Or you ain't going to be mom used to say, you're not going to be underfoot all day long. Go out and play. And explaining that to my grandson once, he was like, I don't get the big deal about drinking out of the water hose. It's like, the reason you drank out of the water hose is because you weren't allowed back in the house. You walked in the house, it better be to go to the bathroom, and that's it. Don't you go in my kitchen. I just mopped the floor.
We
You
did
know.
that too. The hose, drinking out of the water hose. But here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing: that was unheard of in our
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
Unheard of. I mean, at least I never witnessed that at all. But I saw my friends, and we'd be
Mm-hmm.
hanging out, and they get thirsty. They just turn on because the hose was attached to the side of that, and we'd
Yeah.
be running around,
Mm-hmm.
and let's get some water. And he'd go straight to the hose. Something that and I saw him doing that, and so I went and grabbed it, and 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 turned on
And it was
the
hot,
spigot
wasn't
thing,
it?
and I was like, but I felt this that this is wrong. It's normal, but it's wrong. This is not how people. This is not how humans should drink. Think about this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't delve further into it. I was a kid, but I felt
Mm-hmm.
that this is not something you do when you want water.
Uh,
You go to the kitchen and you grab a glass and you drink. This is what we were, but they didn't have none of that. They were like, I mean, they had their kitchens, but that's not the point. They were quite willing to do that, and so I
yeah.
followed suit.
Well, we weren't allowed back in the house because mom just mopped the kitchen floor, and you better not be running into her kitchen. Oh, hell no. If you come into the house before dinner time, it had better be because you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. My mom, she would tell me, because the thing is that my friends would be walking all up and down the street
Mm-hmm.
without shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and so one of the things is that
Man.
the way I was raised here with the
Mm-hmm.
people around me is that, like, if I would have grown up in Little Havana,
Mm-hmm.
this behavior would not, I would never have experienced that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big deal. Like, obviously, it's just kids walking barefoot, but you wouldn't see that in a community like in Little Havana with a bunch of Cuban families. That's not part of the deal.
Yeah.
That's not part of the system. That's not. That's almost thought of as a bit wild,
Yeah.
a bit not what, let's call it like healthy to do or whatnot, because
Yeah.
you might get ringworms or like who knows what the
Yeah.
story. And I was told that by my mom, but the problem is
So was I.
since I lived in Sweetwater, guess what ends up happening? I end up walking barefoot all over the place, doing the exact same things. And so I guess they figured, my parents did, that it is what it is.
Yeah.
Because they basically, accepted it. And what are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
But it probably wasn't optimal, even though I picked up all the all the things. It probably wasn't optimal in their mind, probably to one degree or the other. They want to see
Yeah.
you with shoes, socks,
Yeah.
shoes, and
Yeah.
even probably even dressed all the way to the. Who knows what they were thinking? But I wasn't having it, dude.
That was my mother. Don't you go outside without your shoes and socks on. Go put your shoes and socks on. Go put your shoes and socks on. The only time we ever really went barefoot is if there was a risk of us getting our shoes wet. And we didn't want to do that because we didn't want to walk around in wet shoes all day. So take your shoes and socks off, go wade in the creek, do whatever, roll up your pant legs. Unless I was wearing shorts, then it was cool. But always took that was my mother's big thing. Put your shoes and socks on.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I was about 12 years old. I asked, Mom, why the shoes and socks? She goes, because you're not some ragamuffin off the street. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe she thought it somehow looked lower class if I was outside barefoot or what.
Yeah, there's a class thing involved in all that.
I'm guessing that's what it was. I don't know. All I know is that was the biggest argument we ever had, was constantly put your shoes and socks on. You're not going outside barefoot.
We had all the key bits that made up life in America, broadly speaking, back then, in terms of like simple things. Like there was, how you see in movies, there's always the guy in these retro movies that he's always the karate guy.
Yeah.
And he's wearing the karate uniform because it happens to be in place in the 70s and the 70s and that. Well, we had one. His name was Doug.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd love to he was an older kid, but like we'd be playing and stuff, and like one of the kids would say something to the effect, "Oh, you can't kick our ass," blah 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 blah, and Doug would just walk down the little pathway, head straight, like it's a blonde kid, head straight, and then he with his like white dojo, I don't know what the heck you call it, and he'd walk up and then he'd start kicking forward and all the kids would scatter. So he was like the local karate, and then we had the local muscle car dude.
Yeah.
We had the local, like, legitimately rocker with earrings type guy.
Yeah.
We had the chubbies, which were the chubby kids.
Yeah.
Freckled out to the max. Just walking around. Like, we had and then we had, other very. I mean, it was really, so it was kind of an interesting, it was kind of an interesting and fun. There was a lot of kids here, dude.
Yeah.
There was a lot of kids here. That's one thing we've talked about. there's not much in the way of kids now. I can tell
Well,
you
that's
that.
because they're usually in the house playing video games or what have you, or mom's afraid to let them play outside. And I don't know when that started, but I mean, with us, we got kicked out of the house. It's just, okay. All right, American Bandstand's on. Go out and play. Go out and play. And it was that way until I was 13 years old. I'm serious. I turned 13. She finally got off of that. But I mean, 10, 11 years old, go out and play. I'm like, Mom, I'm kind of old for that. So we'd go hang out in my garage. I had a little 8-track player. And in the evenings, I would record, tapes, put together compilation tapes off of albums or other friends' cassettes or other friends' albums or what have you. And we'd hang out in my garage and playing music and just BSing with one another. Or we'd jump on our bikes and go do something or what have you. But it was just, no, if you're coming in the house, it better be to go to the bathroom. And that was it. Get out of here. You're not hanging around
It's
the house all
healthier,
day.
or at
It
least
is.
it was back in the day. Because I mean, hell, you're out with your friends and
Mm-hmm.
farting around and getting into mini trouble, not too
Well,
much.
I think more than anything, it taught independence. Yeah, you were out with your friends, but it was you and your friends. There was no adult supervision. I mean, it wasn't like one of the dads went with us down to the creek to go search for crawfish or something like that. It was just 4 or 5 8-year olds, you know, down there in the water, splashing around, turning over rocks, that kind of thing. So it taught you a little bit of independence, and it taught you, I don't know, a lot, in a lot of ways, we made our own fun because we had to. You couldn't go to the movies every day. You couldn't go to the bowling alley every day as much as you wanted to. But if we had 3 quarters, we'd go play pinball or something like that down to the bowling alley. But or run over to the store and grab some little Hostess donuts and a Coke or something like that. But it was make your own fun, and we had an absolute blast doing it. It was a hell of a time to grow up and a hell of a time to be alive. That's what I meant when I said last week that I think you and I are of the last fully independent generations because we were taught to be independent. Some of it intentionally, some of it not so intentionally. And yeah, the car guys, I mean, getting that driver's license and getting that first key to a car, that was independence. Because now, I mean, the bike went in the garage and it was covered in that much dust. I didn't get out my bicycle once after I got my driver's license. I think my brother inherited it. I think I'll let him have it. But
the bike bit was a good thing to have.
mm-hmm.
And I think that if see, I don't want to what do you call it, um, control for society, but I think that but just in my mind, just for my purposes, I think that more bike riding and walking
Mm-hmm.
is such a benefit.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And but it's decades long since, and doing it now for the past year and a half, even though I mean I've lost like 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I still have like 10-15 pounds to go. I haven't tackled that part of it, but I'm sort of hovering in a place where I haven't been for a decade,
Yeah.
for a decade, which is something to say. But doing that now, it's also allowed me, which I told you last time, to kind of smell the flowers in a sense. I mean, I do want to get to my destinations, or like when I go to a certain place.
Yeah.
Like today, I went to Sedanos, which is a Spanish
Yeah.
supermercado, in Sweetwater, and I went walking, and I wanted to get there because I really didn't. I just want to get there, but inevitably, since you have to walk it, you end up seeing different little things along your way. You're exercising,
Mm-hmm.
and after months of doing it, or a year now and a half or so, a year maybe, um, I have seen the difference in my energy and my general um well sense of well-being.
Mhm.
Maybe not like, oh, I can bounce for days, but I do feel that, yeah, just the act of, of walking forces you to it forces you to move your legs forward and back, which is a
Oh,
little.
no, no, no. I've done enough of that. Thank you very much. If I could fit the truck in the house, I'd drive to the bathroom. Yeah.
But, because, well, no, if you had your way, or my if I had my way, at the end of the day, sitting in front of a computer
Hmm.
with all available information, especially for my interests, it's so easy. It's all in
Yes, it
front,
is.
and I could basically be here
Mhm.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to do. It's very, very easy to do. And there are times that I catch myself and I'm like, I got to get up. I got to get out of here, man. What am I doing? You know,
Yeah,
what the hell am I doing?
and there's
Now,
plenty to explore.
a lot of, there's a lot. And a lot of my work is done on the computer.
Yeah,
And so, but I'm not working 100% of the time. I mean, I've got 3 files open right now that I am working on, but sometimes you get to a point where you kind of get, all right, I got to stop, I got to back away from this. Otherwise, I'm going to get frustrated, I'm going to mess something up. And that's when I start on something else. Or I'm editing a video, or I'm setting up to do a live stream or something like that.
I've got 6 tabs open right now,
I've
all
got one
waiting of things that haven't finished.
I've got one tab on this page, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 windows open. One of them has 4 tabs. One of them has 5 tabs. One of them has 8 tabs. One of them has 3. This one has 1. This one has 4. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tabs. So yeah, I've got web pages open all over the place.
See, those are little. If you think of like a family tree, or like a
Hmm.
little sketch of
Hmm.
little forks in the road, those are
Hmm.
all your little bread trail, or your like cookie trails. Hansel and what did he say?
Steve says I'm not counting tabs and windows. I don't know if you could, Steve. But let me ask you this, Steve. Are you a separate window kind of guy, or are you one of those like Linda? I'm telling on you, Linda. She has one window open, but to be like 35 tabs, and they're all so small you can't tell what they are unless you hover the cursor over them.
That's me. But it's funny. Actually, I try to limit it. What I do now, I used to do that, but what I do now,
Mhm.
if my little tabs at the top start shrinking, I have to. I feel that I have to eliminate the less of the useful ones currently being
Mhm.
occupying that space, and I will eliminate.
Mhm.
And sometimes I regret it, and I was like, damn. And then I'll remember
Mhm.
that we have a what do you call it? History,
Mhm.
so I can just go and open it again. But
Let me.
the thing is, it's interesting how you have that habit of having multiple stuff.
Mhm.
Linda has, Steve has, everybody virtually. It's
Mhm.
an interesting thing because it speaks to the mind according to the things that we're interested in, to whatever degree, and how we page through it. What's interesting is that you're showing that behavior, Linda's showing that behavior, Steve's showing that behavior, and I'm sure everybody else here has that similar. That speaks to how people, when you have the ability to access all that, that they will throughout many forks in the road. It's an interesting thing.
Sorry, it took a few minutes to find the right tab. Yeah, that's that's about it. But it's easy to do. But I learned a long time ago when I first got online that if I'm looking at something and there's a link, but I don't want to leave what I'm looking at, I'll right click and open in a new window.
I don't do
This
that.
this was before multiple tabs in the same window.
Oh, okay.
And then multiple tabs came up in web browsers, and I started using that. But I still will I'll right click and open a link in a new tab if it's related. But if it's not related, like this window, I have StreamYard. And then I go to another window, and this is all dedicated to YouTube. I've got 5 tabs open on YouTube. And then another window is dedicated to email. I've got 3 different email addresses that I monitor closely. Those are right there. Then my website, then a couple of other things open, 2 other email addresses. And
So you group them
so
in the
I
different.
group them into basic subjects. Yes.
See, I don't do that. I open up one Windows thing
Mm-hmm.
and have a bunch of tabs there, and I work with that, and then I'll bounce back and forth. And
Yeah.
it's funny. Are we? I can tell you. Well, I can't tell you. I can't tell you if I'm making best use
Mm-hmm.
of my time with the available options that I have. Is it the optimal
Yeah.
use of my time? Because frankly, it could go either way. But the point is,
Mm-hmm.
how efficient am I being um, compared to if I had just the ability to do one thing at a time? I don't know.
Yeah, I like to think of it as being efficient, but I know I'm kidding myself because like I get up first thing in the morning. First thing I do is I get into my emails. So I bring up that window and I check this email address, spam, 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 mark it as spam. Not spam, not spam, not spam, but not interested. Select them, delete. Now I'll read these emails. Then I go to the other email address. And then I look at that. Okay, fine. Do the same thing there. Then I go to the next email address. Done checking my emails. Now I'll go over to social media. And like I've got my Facebook open here. I got my Instagram open here. And I'll go check on those. All right, fine. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. You I don't want to talk to. And then I'll go over to the YouTube side and I'll check this page, that page, that page, that page, that page. But see, I have my subscriptions, then I have my channel. So I can see has there been any changes. Then I have my community tab open. Then I have my content tab open. Then I have my comments tab. So I can go to each one of these things without closing something or clicking another link. I can just go to that tab and go, okay, refresh. Okay, 2 new comments here. Answer this one. Thumbs up and a heart on that one. Answer this one. And I'm done with comments for now. And I can jump back over here and see if anybody posted and they haven't posted anything I want to watch. I'll come back to you later on. I like to think of myself as being efficient, but it's all a massive time suck. And that's what it is. It's a massive time suck. So I have to push myself away. And what's the first thing I do when I go out to the shop? I fire up that computer out there.
This is
And
enough of this. I'll go
and
over to the next.
I'll put it up on Facebook. I'll open up Facebook on that computer. Then I fire up the computer for the controls the CNC router, and I'll start getting into that. Or maybe I got to work on the table saw, and I'll back up. But there's certain things that I need to monitor over the course of the day because I have people relying on me for certain things. So I have to be kind of available. I'm not available 24/7, but I kind of have to be available for certain things. And so I have to monitor. And it's not, drop everything and run and sit down and type a message or anything. But if I see, okay, I got a message from that guy, I got to get back to you on that. So, there's all kinds of little BS things that you do over the course of the day that are just massive time wasters and time sucks. And I justify it by saying, well, I'm not sitting around all day watching television. But either way, you're glued to a screen. Quit kidding yourself, Mark.
So, 2 things. One has to do with AI, and the first one is to do with Rick Beato, the
Mhm.
channel that does music.
Yeah.
I think he released a new video,
Hmm.
which is worth watching, Mark.
Hmm.
It's concise, very poignant, and I think that you would enjoy it. You guys out there would enjoy it. So he says, why he's done some of these, but never in this fashion, the way he did it. He says, why has music become so bad?
Hmm.
And he laid into a whole very concise explanation, and he used examples um, that is worth it's worth watching. Um, and he explained the things that we've heard about autotune and this and that.
Mhm.
But he started with back in the 60s, there was this reel to reel situation. Or, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, he started back in the 50s and 60s, and he explained that back then people like Frank Sinatra
Mhm.
would make their music, but they would record it live. So they would have one room with multiple microphones all leading into the recorder.
Right.
And so they had to tweak the sound until the artist said, okay, that's good. And then they would sing, and all that was captured. And now you have one product.
Mhm.
If you ever listen to Frank Sinatra songs, whether you like it for what it is or not, I don't know if you do or not, but the sound quality,
Mhm.
even though it's mono, is beautiful,
Yep.
in my opinion. It has depth, it's fullness and rich,
Mhm.
and yet it's mono, but it's panned. So they had to make decisions on the spot. Anyway, then you get into the 60s and you had these multi-tape recorders, so people could make more decisions. But he started going down the list in a very concise way until he got to the auto tune,
Mhm.
and he went into the idea of what we've talked about. You have too many options. So
Yeah.
once you have so many options, just like your computer examples that you're saying, or what we were suggesting about efficiency, once you have so many options and you have one goal that you want to get done,
Mhm.
all the options, so many options, might cause you to bottleneck in terms of
Yes.
decision making, because you have all these options available. So that can wait, that can wait, that can wait, that can wait,
Right.
and you end up going in circles and such. So there is that, but at the same time, having the options available is still freaking cool, because I mean, you
Yes.
could use it to your advantage, and many times we
Right.
do. But after he did all that, explaining that about music, he went into the music business explanation,
Mhm.
talking about the Spotify's and this and that, and he used very precise explanations, which I loved. And he came to the conclusion. You'd have to see it for yourselves, but he said that, look, an album is no longer the access to an album. You pay $10 a month, you can have all the history of music on your computer at any moment. So the value of a song in itself, price tag wise,
It's very little.
is very little, because if it's $10 to stream everything ever recorded, how much is an album or even a song? A
Yeah.
triple of that. And he really went into, and it's kind of true.
Yep.
And then he explained that back in the day we used to have to work to get an album.
Yeah.
So if you have to work to get an album, you get the album. You actually have to sit down and actually listen to it.
Yes.
And if you don't like it, you might have to consider listening to it a few more times, because you spent money on it.
Yeah, and we've talked about that several times
We have,
about the financial as well as the emotional investment that
yeah,
you had in an album. And even your least favorite album, of all the albums that you owned at any particular month of any particular year, of all the albums you own, one of them was your least favorite. You still wouldn't give it away. You still wouldn't throw it out, even if it had not been on a turntable in a year. It was still yours. You had skin in the game with that thing.
yeah,
You might trade it to somebody else if they had something that they wanted or that you wanted and they wanted that, but that was a rare occurrence. So you had an emotional attachment to it as well as a financial investment in it.
yeah,
Now it's kind of like a picture. Uh, Photographs have gone the same way. When you can pick up your phone and shoot 32 pictures of the same thing just in rapid succession, and then pick out the one you like the best and delete all the rest of it, how much value is there in that photo? You
yeah.
know,
I mean, when you look at old photos, the limitation, and that's just basically what was there,
and the expense.
and the expense. It was rare. It was a one-off, and it was special because of those things. But now that you have the ability, I've used photographs to my advantage with the digital in
Hmm.
order to capture the things that I've wanted to do.
Sure.
Um, and they do record something, but there is the availability and all that, ease of use, and the ability to take 100 photos of the same thing, um, also has its, its drawback in
Yeah.
terms of that specialness, let's say.
Yeah. It big
Yeah.
time, because we have just cheapened the value. I mean, when you bought a roll of film, be it 12, 24, or 36 exposures, you were selective about what you took a picture of, because you spent money on that roll of film and you didn't want to waste it taking a picture of your feet. Where now, oopsie, I took a picture of my feet. It's no big deal because I can just delete that right now.
Yeah.
But if you took a picture of the floor, you had a picture of the floor forever, or until you threw it away. But even then, you had to make a decision. Do I really want to throw this away? Because I spent money on this. Not to
E-
mention, as Jim says, not to mention waiting 2 weeks for it to be developed.
it took us, did it take you 2 weeks?
It didn't, well, it depends on where you live, because you may not go to town for 2 weeks, and then and forget about 1 hour photo. You dropped it off and then you went back the next week and picked it up.
We had 24-hour processing, and we did have 1 hour processing, but the 1 hour processing depended on, various circumstances, like if a lot of people were it would be delayed and such, and this and that.
Hmm.
So there was all that, but there's still photo centers in those CVS's.
Right. But the 1 hour photo was something that came along. I was like 10 or 11. So we're looking at 71, 72, 73, somewhere in there when that came along. And it was expensive. If you dropped your film off and came back in 3 to 5 days, it was one price, and it was like triple the price if you wanted it back in an hour. And it was called Photomat. It was a little, like an Adobe brick hut out in the middle of a parking lot, and they had like a concrete island around it, and it was just a little shack. And all the dude did, you rolled up with your film, you filled out the little envelope, you put the film in it, folded it up, and gave it to him, and he gave you the ticket back, and you went away, and then you came back and you paid him for it, and he gave you your pictures.
And then there was the issue of some of the photos that you might have wanted to be pristine ended up half overexposed.
Or
um
out of focus because you twisted, it was blurred.
yeah, there was all those situations involved too,
Hmm.
so it was sort of like, but staying with this theme, and just to add one more thing from the video, I don't know if this is true, but I'm assuming it is, but then again, whatever. And I don't see why not, but he said something to the effect of that, to add insult to injury in terms of
Hmm.
the throwawayness of songs now, due to
Uh-huh.
$10 getting you everything. So what
Yeah.
investment really, you hear something, you don't like it, move on.
Hmm.
Whereas before it was different in a sense.
Yeah.
He said that today, per second, I believe it was, a new song is constantly being uploaded. He gave a number of how many songs uploaded by just people doing their own songs.
Yeah.
So there's a constant. So what, at the end of the day, the amount of music out there
Hmm.
plus AI,
Yeah.
um, it's overwhelming, and frankly, due to that, I can double down on the key features that I enjoy from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, some of
Yeah.
the 90s, and there you have it.
Yeah.
I'm good with
I
that.
I agree with you, because the minute it became, and we're examples of this, the minute it became possible for anybody and everybody to record a song,
They did.
they did it, and they cheapened it. And the minute it became possible for anybody with a camcorder to shoot a video and post it on YouTube, we did. And in many ways, we cheapen television because you can be entertained by what you want to be entertained by right now. If you want to watch a guy dig a 5-acre pond out on a big lot somewhere in
You can.
Alabama, you can watch it. If you want to watch two guys on lawnmowers and football helmets jousting with ski poles, you can watch it. If you want to watch cats getting scared because a printer just kicked out a piece of paper and he jumped 6 feet in the, you can watch it. So we have made television an archaic little cute thing from the past. That does anybody actually watch television anymore? You know, that kind of a deal.
I don't know, but I'll tell you, I'm sure there's plenty of people. But to be honest with you, um, considering the alternative of being fed a specific thing, and there was specialness to it, but that's
Yes,
all
there
we had
was.
available, and it happened in that world at that time, for a whole century actually. But with that said, this that we have now is far superior in that you can see some of those old, or many of those, much of
Oh
those
yeah.
old, but you can do it at your whim.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, there is the argument that regular people like you and I and anybody else with whatever particular interest they have can film their own stuff and put it up there, which they do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's of interest. So like, things like what you do, people are hungry to understand more and participate. And so there is something to be said. I mean, imagine if back in the day you were to watch, I don't know, Happy Days,
Mm-hmm.
and you could leave a comment, and with the
Right.
possibility of the font saying, yeah, we filmed this the other night and stuff. And just
Mm-hmm.
imagine the whole. So
Yes.
in a
Yes.
sense, it's
There
like,
is that.
yeah, so there is some special
there
stuff
there
going
is
on.
a little bit of that, but then again, there isn't really a character to come along. I mean, I don't know how old you were when the Fonz was a big thing, because I was like in the 6th grade. So,
When did Happy Days come out?
oh my God, it was. Let's just say it got popular in the mid 70s,
Because I
early
grew up watching Happy
73,
Days.
74. But was it? But was it a weekly thing or was it in reruns?
No, it was a weekly thing,
Okay.
and I don't know. Well, actually, when did? Let me see. Let's look now. What years was Happy Days? Shoot. Okay, well here it's got. It was from 74 to 84.
Was it that long? Wow. See,
255 episodes.
okay, 74, I was 13. 84, I was 23. So I wasn't watching it then. I really don't remember when it went off the air. I remember watching it for a couple of years and then I just didn't really care anymore. You know?
Yeah, I grew up
Oh,
watching it.
mhm. So
I
it
grew up
started
watching.
the year before you were born.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Happy Days started the year before I was born,
Mhm.
and I grew up
But
watching it on TV as it came on.
but
So
but we have so many choices now, we kind of stagnate because
yeah.
like when growing up watching Happy Days, that was on a specific time of a specific night. You knew that, okay, it's this day, Happy Days, then Laverne and Shirley.
But you
You
see how
knew.
you see how this is a good example
Hmm.
of a cross generational.
Yeah.
Um, um, you see what I'm saying? Like it's an item, or I'm sorry, it's a TV show that came up came out when you were growing up, that kept going.
Yeah.
I'm born
Hmm.
the year after it comes out, and what until I was what, like 9 years old or something like that.
1984. So you would have been, yeah, 9.
Yeah, so I grew up watching that, and but it crossed a generational thing. Well, it was a product of the 70s at the end of the day. But see how that works though, and a lot of things overlap like that.
Yeah.
But by the time, so in the 80s, a lot of things were leftovers. Well, I don't know. You never saw. Well, crap. You know what? Forget that. I'll just tell you this. A lot of the daytime operas, which I didn't participate in unless I was sick, and I'm watching this crap after Price is Right would come on.
Hmm.
Those things went generationally for decades, dude. Like your Dallases and your whatnots, Falcon Crests, and
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
Falcon Crest was later, I think,
I don't know. I didn't watch it.
but dude, but some of these things came on like ruining a kid's evening because you wanted to see something,
Hmm.
and then you'd have this freaking soap opera, and you'd be, oh crap. But a lot of them were daytime soap operas,
Hmm.
and when you were sick and out of school or pretending to be
Yeah.
sick and got lucky, did you ever get away with not being sick but
Oh
said you
God,
were sick?
yes. Oh God, yes.
Oh, dude, see, that's so good.
But
It's
see,
bad. You
but
were bad,
see,
but it's so
my
good.
dad worked graveyard, so he slept all day. My mom worked. So I mean, you better be seriously running a fever to
But
be
you never got
home
away with
sick.
one.
Oh, sure I did. I
Oh,
would go to school and then play sick and get sent home. So dad was asleep, mom was
oh,
at
you were
work.
bad. That's
Yeah.
really bad. I
So
never went that. See, Mark, that is
so
just that is just terrible.
that
I
was
would
that was me
try.
being a boy. That was it.
See, see, I never went that
But
far. So once I got thrown out,
don't try to sidetrack me now. I had a point to this.
go ahead, go ahead.
But we were talking about Happy Days. If you liked Happy Days and you liked watching Happy Days, maybe you're not in the mood to watch Happy Days tonight.
Maybe what?
Now, maybe you're not in the mood to watch Happy Days tonight.
Oh,
Maybe it just doesn't appeal to you.
yeah,
But now you have a tough decision to make because it's only on once a week at a specific time. And if you don't watch it, you miss that one.
yeah. Yeah. That's it.
So you got a real tough decision to make. Did you ever plan something around a TV show? Or tell your friends, nah, I can't go to the movies that night because X is on TV or whatever is on.
No, I enjoyed TV shows, but if I
Hmm.
had to go out, I'd go out because I prefer
Okay.
going. And I felt like I'm leaving that behind, but I'm
Hmm.
going out for an experience, so I would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never felt that kind of situation.
Yeah. Steve says I lived a block from school and mom worked days, so I just went home when I was tired of school. Yeah, see, there you go. It's like my brain's full. I'm tired of one and one is two. I'm going home.
I actually took the lighter.
Show's over. I'm tired.
I would take the lighter and I would actually light up the thermometer.
Thermometer. I got
And
caught
I
doing that.
and so like every trick in the book that a kid would do, and I
Hmm.
did get away with it once or
Hmm.
twice. Not the thermometer, but the feeling sick.
Hmm.
Um, I did get away with it,
Hmm.
and I was like in bed thinking something to the effect of like, I got away with it. But it's not. I shouldn't have felt all that goodness that I did, but I did. Um,
Yeah, but see, I couldn't imagine having a mom that stayed home because now what do you do?
no, my mom would leave to work.
Yeah. Okay. So having a mom that worked, that was fine. But if mom was home all day, I
You're
gotta stay
screwed,
in bed all day. I've got to be bored. I'd rather go to school. You know.
dude. I watched The Price is Right.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go there. You were talking about soap operas, and I said, yeah, but we had the game shows too.
Dude, it was so much fun. Well, it wasn't.
Hmm.
It was weird because you were being naughty.
Hmm.
You knew that but at the same time,
Hmm.
it's like you didn't want to deal with the whole. It was
Hmm.
stuff. It was stuff that we.
Yeah, I think just about every kid did it
Now talking
at
about
least once.
talking about like retro stuff, but with
Hmm.
the new stuff like AI. The other thing I wanted to mention is that and it's popped out up a lot, and I don't know if
Hmm.
you've run into it, but with the AI glasses and such, there are some people that programmed a whole space
Hmm.
building that you can navigate around
Hmm.
with different floors. But inside the buildings,
Hmm.
are arcade games,
Oh, okay.
and all the arcade games are real life representations,
Hmm.
including the stickers, the screens with all the actual lines the way they would be.
Yeah.
Um, like if you're looking at the actual machine as if you went to the arcade,
Hmm.
and there's a few videos of people going. You should check it out just as a checking it out thing. Just a suggestion because he takes you in with his glasses,
Hmm.
and dude, and you can hear the sounds, and you can see Donkey Kong and this and that. And the thing is that they're doing some wild recreations of environments, and this is one example of how you could pull the past into the present. It may not be the same, but it's so darn beneficial to be able to access that. An actual freaking arcade, and be in there.
Hmm.
Um, boy, it was really exciting when I came across that.
There's some interesting things going on with AI. There's a guy who's experimenting with having AI write him a song
AI
and
what?
write him a song.
Oh, okay.
And he'll perform it, he'll play it, but it wants that he tells the AI what he wants it to be. And I don't know which AI he's using. This stuff is above my head. I don't know. He's he tells him what he wants the song to be about, what he wants the title to be, and what certain words he wants worked into the lyrics. And he'll say, "Write me a country western song about this, this, and this, and it's called that." And it'll give him, it'll play him a little MIDI of the melody, give him the sheet music and the lyrics, and he'll sit down and he'll play it. And a lot of times it's nonsense, but there's some pretty funny stuff that comes out of it too.
All my exes live in
Right
the
next door to me.
panhandle, the panhandle of Florida. Like they'll just take stuff from, because there's also that argument now that some are talking about
Mhm.
that AI is basically, because if you think about it, if you asked AI
Mhm.
to invent ooga which
Mhm.
is a word salad of nothing,
Mhm.
um,
I like that phrase, word salad.
it couldn't do anything about it, or I
Mhm.
don't know, it could invent something. I guess that's a bad example. Let me regress. Humans
Mhm.
wrote songs
Mhm.
with meanings
Yep.
out of their head. There was one human that learned to play the guitar, and then
Mhm.
people started playing guitar. But humans created words stitched together, and the computer AI is using that data, but there was already an inventor prior.
Mhm.
Because on its own, let's put it this way, AI doesn't exist unless we inform it.
Yeah.
And sure, it's recollating and this and that, but on its own,
But it
as
has
far
to
as
know what to do, what result. It has to have something to work on. Somebody has to tell it what to do.
right. So all of it, so the thing is, it's collating and grabbing from
Sure.
everywhere so fast. So there's that. But um so they're now suggesting that they're
Mhm.
just taking stuff from everywhere and transforming it, and now it's new.
Mhm.
But I don't know that it is new in a sense because it's a mashup type thing.
Yeah.
But is it new? No, we
Not
as
really.
humans were the initiators of that as far as we know.
Right. Because by itself, it's not going to come up with anything yet. Yet.
Well, yeah, if there's no humans,
Hmm.
there's no computer, because no computer can exist without a human as far as the reality we understand it. So nothing from the computer.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying, right?
I
Like,
do see what you're saying because there has to be power to operate the computer. There has
yeah,
to be somebody to put the computer together. There has to be somebody
yeah,
to hook it all up.
and
Right.
information for that matter, like language,
I'm sure
the
you got to
ones in
create. You got to create the data for it to collate.
right. So at the end of the day,
Hmm.
imagine in fact, there would be no blank space somewhere
Hmm.
with just a computer standing there. because it requires a
What would it have
conscious.
to do? Exactly.
And that, by the way, that's a good argument for a creator. But with that said, um, what the computer is basically doing is filtering what we've already, as a society, let's say, as human
What we're
beings.
putting on the yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, but whatever, I
Mhm.
mean, people are saying, I doubt.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not going to say what I was about to say because I was making a leap in assumption, but I'm going to stick with which was Pete Seeger said. Pete Seeger or Bob Seeger? Um,
Miles apart, dude. Miles apart.
yeah, one is country,
Mhm.
which is the
Well,
Pete Seeger,
well,
and then
one
there's
he
Bob
was
Seeger.
folk, but yeah,
What's that?
he was folk, but yeah.
Folk music, not country
Mhm.
music, but well, it's country music. Let's not splice hairs, but it's old folk music.
Mhm.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. He would sing that. He would sing what was this what was that song that was quite sharing America? This
Oh,
is your
this
land.
land is your land, or sand is my land. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but in any event, I would stick with Bob Seger.
Mhm.
Um,
You and me both.
and yeah, well, and I'd say just take those old records off the. I like the reality, the roots, on the ground when it comes to that. So the music that it's produced by these computers, even though I like the arcade reproduction, for some reason I like that, but I don't like the music aspect of it. I don't know why. It
Well,
seems that the arcade is representing an environment that we're familiar with, and even though the music is doing the same thing, but there's something for me phony about the one, but
and that's
quite
what it
awesome.
is. It's phony. That's what it is. It's over processed. Auto tune was created to be a special effect. The first song that it was used on was Cher, Do You Believe in Life After Love? When she would sing a note and they would da 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 da, they would tune her voice up and then back down.
Yeah.
It was used as a special effect, and that was all.
Do
But
you believe in love
but
after love?
but well, sure, why not? Um, but it quickly became a way to fix inaccuracies. It led to pitch correction, which led to mistakes being covered up, or just flat out, let's do one, maybe two takes. We'll pitch correct and we'll auto tune it, and that's good enough. Where a band or a performer would spend months in the studio, they could now do in a week and have two albums. So they've got all this stuff in the can, and the engineers will work it out. We can fix any errors. So, but in doing so, they have stripped all the humanity out of it
Yeah.
because a human voice will do little slides that may be slightly sharp or slightly flat if it's coming down. Human voice will do a build into a crescendo, and not every portion of that build's going to be on perfect hit at perfect pitch every single time. It just sounds fake. It sounds processed. It sounds plastic. There's they've stripped all the humanity out of it
And
because
all the good music was written.
humans don't do that.
All the good music also was written back in the '60s, '70s, and such. Anyway,
I think there's still some good, meaningful songs out there. It's just the way they're performed, the way they're released. It's hard to make an emotional connection. You and I talk a lot about we heard something on the radio back in the day, and it's like, damn, they're talking to me. How does he know my story? How does he know that I'm thinking that right now? Damn, they're talking to me. I challenge you to do that with anything made after, say, 2002.
When somebody busts out with writes a song in today's world that's as powerful as "Here's a story, it's sad but true." Oh, and the voices in the back, "All about a girl I want you." Oh,
Well,
and then it starts with the drums.
hey, hey,
Uh,
hey, hey, hey.
yeah, when I hear something that really frickin' takes the two forks and frickin' jabs it into that turkey, then I'll say rock and roll is back.
Well,
But
yeah.
this whole techno,
Well,
sorry.
there's a lot of people out there, and I'm hard pressed to argue with them about it. There are a lot of people out there saying that the rock era started in 1955 and ended in 1998. There are a lot of people that say the rock era is over. It's done. That there is nothing close to rock now. I would tend to push back a little bit because I still think I think you still have some decent bands out there. They tend to be more on the metal side, but I really can't fault their logic when they say that. I really can't. I mean, I can sit there and say, but wait a minute, man, Metallica's still out there performing. Wait a minute, what about Disturbed? They're still out there performing. Wait a minute, what about this, that, and the other? Like, no, no, no,
Polka
no, it's
bands,
not the same.
polka bands are still around.
Yeah, that's true.
You see what I'm saying?
My wife
See,
plays bagpipes. Who you telling?
well, but see,
So,
here's the thing. So here's the thing about this that you just said. It's going to be very difficult to convince me, um, in the grand scheme. The 20th century, not only it's funny, it wasn't not only the century of automobiles
mhm.
and of radios and of TV, and of venereal disease, um, but it was also the era of rock and roll.
Yeah,
And I think that century that we were so lucky
but
to be alive in the latter half or in the second half of, you know, um freaking rock, man.
but
I'm
think
sorry.
but think about it. Think about, I would say about 75%. And I know, Steve, you're probably going rolling your eyes right now real heavy, but think about country as well, because I know you're a fan of country western music. Probably 75% of rock and country music, the overwhelming theme, the dominant theme of it was that independence and self-reliance. It was about,
You don't categorize folk and country. Well, I'm diverging. Go
no,
ahead.
I don't categorize folk and country as the same thing.
Okay.
Um, Bob Dylan was a folk singer. He
Yeah.
was not a country singer.
Yeah, but folk music is
But
a. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
but where I was going is, if you get into country, if you get into folk as well, if you get into rock and roll, the overwhelming majority of it was independence. I mean, there are so many songs about cars. There are so many songs about being out on the road, motorcycles, trucks, just being out and about. Everything from Bob Seger Against the Wind or Hollywood Nights to, I mean, I'll go on back to Pete Seeger. This land is your land. This land is my land. It's all about being out there, not in here, not in here, not in here. It's about being out there. There's a big, bright, beautiful world out there. And there are situations along the way that you have to explore, some good, some bad. But most of it had to do with that freedom and that independence, you know.
Um, I want to switch gears and tell you or share something with you, and tell me if you found something similar. I know
Okay.
that you're a product, and I love when I'm bold like this,
Mhm.
but just like I am, of not only the history moving through, but like of the advantages that we have today of access to the internet.
Uh-huh.
I think I'm safe to say that. But I'm wondering if you've um, had this happen to your, besides the things that you're interested in that are obvious, like the CNC.
Mhm.
Have you ran into something? And I'm sure the answer. Well, let me not even say that. Have you ran into something online, or on the internet, or video, or that you saw somebody doing, like some sort of hobby, discipline slash whatever, that was just so in your lane in terms of the vibe in your head or your up your spinal cord, that really knocked you for a whirl and said, "Man, that is interesting to me." Have you
Yeah.
found something that struck a chord with you like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm watching right now I'm watching 4 different channels of people restoring or rebuilding either castles, chateaus, or just family farmhouses in Europe. I have absolutely no interest in moving back to Europe. I don't know the first thing about building with stone. I know don't know the first thing about their architecture or their construction methods. That's interesting to me to watch them take a burnt out building that was basically a ruin and turn it into something that the family can live in. That's interesting to me.
Let me
Watching
amend.
them watching them bring back something old and ancient and make it livable again.
Okay,
That's interesting to me.
okay, and you have mentioned this as one of your interests,
Hmm.
and I find that interesting too, actually. But let me amend my previous,
Hmm.
that you want to, something you've seen that struck a chord, but that you want to feasibly partake in copying or doing or such.
Um, Not that I want to copy or do, but if I was younger, I'm watching a 45-year-old guy attempt to make a desert forest. He's got
I've seen.
like 260 acres out in one of the most remote areas of Texas, and it's called Dust Ups. It's the Dust Ups Ranch, and he's a guy from the city who is learning as he goes. He doesn't really know what he's doing, but he's learning and he's figuring it out. And he wants to try to bring back that area used to be like a desert forest, meaning that there was plant life there, and it's now basically gone. The wind is just blowing away all the topsoil, and it's nothing but a bunch of yuck. And he's trying to bring that back and bring life to it. That's interesting to me. If I was in my 20s or 30s, that's interesting to me. I might attempt to do something on a much smaller scale. I'm not buying 260 acres. I might think that that's cool and I want to try that.
Okay.
Um, Rebuilding a house. I have no interest in even attempting it now. I pay somebody else to change the oil in my car. I don't even want to do that. All right. If I was 30 years old, I'd probably consider it because I know where a lot of properties are around here that it would be perfect. There would be perfect to do.
when you said
I'm not getting into it now. I'm
when you
way
said the
too old.
oil change, all I could think
Hmm.
about, I had no problem. I said, like first, like, and
Hmm.
I thought, I said, Phil, change the filter while I'm at it, but the kneeling down or screwing under the, when
Getting
when
under
that
the car.
when
Yep.
that part came into the picture, it was like, yeah,
Yeah, I ain't
absolutely.
doing that. I ain't doing that.
It's a
No,
pain in the butt
exactly.
unless you have a
No.
lift of sorts.
When I was 20 years old, a buddy would come over. I need to get an oil change. Screw that. Let's go do it. All right. Let's go down. Let's go get you a filter and what's it, 5 quarts of oil? Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Pull it into the driveway. Let's go.
You could always in your parking lot,
Mm.
in your driveway, you can always dig a round hole straight down. And
Well, I had a bucket and it was a little thing that you pulled the plug out of the middle of it and it all fell right into this can, put the thing back on it. We took it down to the car parts place, the Western Auto, and they had a big tank outside. You dump it there.
yeah, um, I'm just saying instead of a lift, but whatever. Okay, so that's fine. So I personally I ran across um a video of a lady somewhere in Asia,
Mm-hmm.
um, probably somewhere maybe the Philippines, somewhere around there. And she makes watercolor art,
Uh-huh.
but the way she does it, she takes. So imagine if you have a scene and you take a picture of it or something,
Mm-hmm.
and she draws it by hand,
Yeah.
and it's not very well drawn, let's say. She's just copying it and she alters it slightly um to her liking, maybe a little line extra or whatnot, but she does it and then she begins to watercolor over it and it blends in. She ends up creating an image of the photo that's uniquely hers but similar, but it gives it a whole different, and it's a cool little thing. I know that this might not suit many people, but I found it so soothing and just listening, almost like Bob Ross, that I just loved it, dude.
It's funny you say that because my wife and I got into a phase. We were stationed over in Hawaii and we started watching Bob Ross. And I mean, the painting bug bit both of us up one side, down the other. So much so that I made an easel and we did this and that and the other, and we got the paints and what have you. And we both made several paintings. Um, I made, I painted 3 paintings. I have one. No, I have all 3 now. One I did frame and it's hanging on the wall. The other 2 are kind of in a closet somewhere. 2 or 3 of Linda's are hanging in our bedroom. But I worked that out of my system and I haven't touched a brush in 30 years, 35 years, something like that. So that was one of those things. Now, there is one thing. I saw a picture. Some guy posted this picture on Facebook. And I looked at it and I said, that is cool. And then I thought, could I do that? Then I thought, oh, hell no. And I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to bring up a picture.
Okay.
I just thought that this was real, real cool. And you can see my screen, this picture, this old timey picture of a couple of baseball players.
Yeah.
And it looks kind of pixelized. I thought that was awesome. And then I saw the next picture along with it. It's all wood screws,
Oh
each
wow.
one painted a little bit different color. And I thought, that is amazing. That is awesome. And my brain went into high gear. And I thought, there's got to be a way that I could get the CNC router to kind of plot out where I would need to drive the screws. Then the practical side came in and said, how much would that son of a gun weigh? How the hell are you going to hang it up? And are you going to drive 2,000 screws and color each one differently? Oh, hell no. But I almost started looking into how I could do that. Because, I mean, come on, let's face it. That's just cool.
It's crazy.
That is fantastic. But it's like, yeah, no, that ain't going to happen. Because, I mean, I didn't count this row here, and I'm damn sure not counting all the rows across. Oh hell no.
That looks like an expensive art piece because, well, I mean, no more here or there because you buy how
Mhm.
many boxes, but that's boxes
Yeah.
and boxes of screws,
Oh
dude.
yeah. And Steve says there's a guy that does that with dice. Excuse me, with dice. That sounds familiar, but where did I see that? That sounds familiar, Steve. I just thought that was cooler than hell. The inventiveness of people. And then I got to thinking about, wait a minute. He didn't paint these, then drive them in. He drove them all in, then painted. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. No, no,
I
no.
mean, you could CNC it and
Well,
get the same image.
I would be able to mark the places to drive the screws. But no, I'm not gonna.
No,
No.
I'm saying that a CNC plaque
Yeah, I
with
could do.
them
Yes, I could do that.
embossed
Hmm.
is badass in itself,
Yeah, that would look very cool.
in my
But
opinion.
what the cool factor to me, well, the picture's cool as it is. But what really drove it over the top for me was the fact that it was done with wood screws, because that's not something that I would have ever considered.
But you know what I think about that? I think I get a feeling of like, man, what a waste of wood screws. You know, like it almost feels sacrilegious in a sense. Like that's so many wood screws. I feel that.
Yeah,
Does that not even
but
cross your
we
mind?
don't know. But we don't know that guy's story. We don't know. Did he just, was he cleaning out Grandpa's workshop after Grandpa passed away? And what the hell am I going to do with all these wood screws?
Because
You
we didn't
know,
at
let's
home.
do something with it. You know,
Did you guys throw away nails? Unless they were really screwed up, we didn't throw away nails, dude. We didn't even throw away. We
um,
didn't throw away any like equipment or like
I,
stuff like that.
the junk that I built, like ramps and stuff from my bicycles and what have you, I straightened out a lot of nails, because my father was one of the, I went to go get some nails to fix the fence, and you kids have been into my nails again. I had to go down and buy another box of nails. You stay out of my nails, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, we tore old crates apart and things like that, and old pallets, and we recycled a lot of nails. But as I got older, it's like, yeah, no, go down to, we, we still got another hardware store right down the road from me that does it. They had these big bins, and you had a little garden cultivator with the three tines, like a miniature pitchfork that was bent over,
Yeah.
and you drug the nails into a bag and you weighed them, and the nails are 4 cents a pound. Go buy a pound of nails.
Yeah.
I'm not straightening out nails no more. So,
We only have one hardware store, mom and pops, left in Sweetwater.
mhm. Oh, we've
We
got
had
a
two.
few.
We used to have two.
Mhm.
Now we
We,
have the one that sells chickens and stuff.
yeah,
Before we had both of them. Now we have one that has horseshoes and such, and this and that. It's
yeah. We have a place down the road from us. It's called Grange Co-op, and that's where you can go buy uh, ducklings, and you can buy chicks, and you can buy, bales of hay and chicken feed and all this other kind of stuff. It's farm and ranch supply, and I mean down to it. you know, you
yeah.
can even buy the animals. But there's a hardware store right down the road from us here, Hubbard Brothers, or it's now Hubbard's. They don't call it Hubbard Brothers anymore. But I can remember it as a kid being on one corner downtown. And in that Facebook group I was telling you about earlier this evening, there is a picture of this road intersection, Riverside Avenue and Main Street, taken in 1917. And on that corner, there, the corner I remember them being on, there's Hubbard Brothers Hardware. So it's been in business since then in the same family.
Wow.
So we still got several ma and pa places like that around here. Like I said, this is one of those places where, you know, some folks can't wait to get out, other folks just hang here.
Could
So,
you imagine what people before the turn of the century, saying the similar things we're saying. Oh, do you remember this and that
Oh yeah.
in the 1800s, and then crossing over into this brand new world, which it was,
Hmm.
of inventions and such and this and that. But and we're kind of doing the same thing. But there, and I'm sure it could be argued that even the internet was a part of the 20th century. To be honest with you, we're just living off of the receipts of that.
Yeah.
It's getting better. It's getting more technical. Let's say
Yeah. I can.
advanced, but everything was invented in the freaking 20th century, dude.
Yeah.
For
I can
goodness
remember.
sakes.
I can remember my dad talking about when they got their first television in the late 50s, mid to late 50s. They got their first TV. And I can remember my grandmother on my mother's side, they had a party line until I was like 8 or 9 years old, party line telephone. And you would wait for a specific ring, and then you knew they were calling you. But what a party line was several houses were on the same line, and each house had a different ring. So if you were on a party line and I called you, your phone might ring 3 times real fast in rapid succession, then stop, then ring 3 times again. And everybody that was connected to that line knew that was your ring. They could pick up and listen to your conversation, and a lot of people did, but it was seen as a
No.
major faux pas. That's not cool. You don't do that. You know?
Um, let me tell you this story before we
Yeah, then we got to land it.
before we land the plane, because I don't want to forget it. I came across it this past week, or last week, or in the weekend or whatnot. I was studying up on Canary Islands and curious about migration to or immigration to Florida, looking at Cuban families and all this and that, and I ended up discovering a family that relocated from the Canary Islands to Key West. It
Okay.
happens to be that there was many people from the Canaries, Cubans, living in Key West since the 1800s and prior, really going back in time. Um, but in the late 1800s, a guy was born in Key West, and his parents were Canary Islanders. He had
Mhm.
various siblings, this, and that. He was born like in 1890 something or whatever,
Mhm.
1887, something more or less in that range. And his name was Manuel Cabeza.
Mhm. Yeah. You posted about him. I remember that name.
I posted something about that in some papers of the time for some reason. So the name Cabeza is head,
Mhm.
and apparently in papers he went by the name of Manuel Head.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's an actual surname called Head out there. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, there is.
Um, but this is a case of it being, you know, turned into English to fit the climate or whatnot.
Yeah.
But in some papers they call him Head, in others they call him Cabeza, and there you have that. But he went to the First World War, served in Europe, came back, and opened up a bar, and it was called the. He opened up a bar somewhere there close to the water. Um, Key West has a unique history because there's a lot of stories from pirate times, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting. But this gentleman of Canarian ancestry, he opens up the bar, but he took up with a mulatto
Mhm.
woman, you know, of various races and whatnot, and and they say her name was Angela. I looked deeper into it, but not by much. And there's other options with her name, but whatever, I left it at that. She was a mulatto, and some of the locals, due to the era, were not very happy of a public union in that regard.
Mhm.
I found the article interesting on various lines, but they didn't appreciate that, and they actually went to him in disguise, uh, clan style, and they sequestered him and beat hell out of him. But in that beating, he fought back and he managed to pull off the masks of some of the assailants. And he recognized some of the assailants One of them was a manager at a cigar factory in Key West. I mean, it's a small town.
Yeah.
They just didn't much care for what his decision was because it didn't
Hmm.
match their prescription of what should be.
Yeah.
And the next day, he went looking for that guy, found him, and put bullets in him, killing him.
Whoa.
Um, what?
I said, whoa. Okay.
Yeah, so Manuel Cabeza,
Hmm.
or Manuel Head, killed the manager of the tobacco thing factory. And he was arrested for it because he did it publicly.
Yeah.
They tarred and feathered his ass too. Manuel Cabeza,
Wow.
he was tarred and feathered as well. This is the extreme of the situation.
Yeah.
So he was probably livid
Well, you can imagine.
because I mean it's so extreme that
Yeah.
and so he was arrested and he was military and the situation was raw.
Hmm.
The sheriff posted two army people there, personnel to
Hmm.
guard the jail cell because I guess they suspected that they would do. It looks like some of the tricks that they would use these type of people would be to turn the other way, come to a jail. The jail guards would turn their heads,
Hmm.
pull the person, and then have them hung and whatnot.
Yeah.
Which is actually what happened. So the sheriff sent the guards home. The clans people came, pulled Manuel from his cell, beat him, tied him to a vehicle, dragged him on the streets of Key West, and hung him by a tree. Then shot him full of bullets.
Hmm.
And in the paper, his father, immigrant to this country, at that time, 1920s. This was 1920s. Think about it.
Yeah.
He in the paper he explained what had happened to his son, and just it was a horror. And I
Hmm.
think that they ended up relocating. Nobody was arrested for it,
Hmm.
um, and,
Of course not.
and the family relocated to Tampa,
Hmm.
another hub for,
Yeah.
Cubans and people. So they went up to Tampa, but I found that the whole story was surreal, dude. But very, very much a true thing that
Hmm.
occurred. Um, and so I just wanted to share that it was just crazy. I'd never read. I had read that situation over like African American. I read that about a gentleman in the '60s that came down to Mississippi to help some sort of situation going down there, and a similar thing. But I had never read it in this type of a scenario, and it was like, whoa! So I decided to write the the
Yeah.
story.
I saw that you had posted about that. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was but there's a lot of historical bits that if you nose around enough, you discover, and there there's enough twists in them. And this is a real people from the last. I'm not
Sure.
trying to minimize it. I'm just trying to say that as far as a story goes, and recounting of it, um, it's dynamic enough to make you think so many things. So I found it very worth posting, and I guess not a tribute, but in a sense, recalling an incident that's
Yeah.
worth remembering in a sense. So nothing. I just wanted to share that. I thought it was very, very interesting to share.
I agree. I mean, that's yeah, a
Yeah,
100 years ago, but still too
a
close
little
to
over
home.
100 years ago, right?
Well, it's
100 and
2024, and if that happened in 1920s, it's about roughly 100 years ago.
about 100 years ago. It's not that long ago.
Not in the great grand scheme of things.
Yeah. So, what's the lesson here? Don't date a mulatto woman.
No, it's just don't be a jerk.
Yeah, yeah. It was insane. It was insane.
Hmm.
Um, in any event, we'll wrap it up with that.
Okay.
None of the views See, I said it right when it popped up because I none of the views from and actions from 100 and some odd years ago should be in any way interpreted to be that of us or our hosts, whatever the word would be that fits in there,
Sponsors.
sponsors, opinions in any
Mhm.
way. Not today, not tomorrow, or 100 to 5,000 years in the future when this is viewed by aliens in the planet Klakkai.
Collect the
Um,
guy.
yeah.
It's a nice place.
In any event, so we hope you enjoyed it. We go live every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time here on our YouTube channel, Trampled Underfoot Podcast dot, on YouTube. And we also have a Facebook page. You can check that out as well. And then we have a website on the internet, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And we're also sponsored by
Wait. You're telling me that our website's on the internet?
our website is what?
On the internet?
It's on the internets.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I know where to look. All right. Harneel Media. Look, just reach out to Steve, okay? I've been talking about this for going on 5 years now. No, over 5 years. Over 5 years. Go talk to Steve. He'll take care of you. You want a website. You don't think you want a website. You want a website. Trust me on this. Talk to Steve. I'll never refer anybody else. There's a link to Harneel Media in everything on this channel, and it's that way for a reason. He'll give you performance. He won't give you excuses. He's very competitively priced, and when you deal with Harneel Media, you're dealing with Steve. You know him, you love him. He's here every week along with us, even on those days that he doesn't want to be, and that says something. So check him out, Harneel Media. That's HARNEAL media.com, sponsor of Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com.
All right. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed the show. We will catch you next week. For the time being, do all the things that you enjoy. Do it safely if possible, hopefully, and have a good time. We shall see you next week. Peace.
Peace. There they are, rabbit ears. Peace.